So 20 years later, India's got its independence 47. 1967, the Beatles go to India. And I've got here, I'm really proud that we've done this. This is a little collaboration with the guys who made the film The Beatles in India. It's a really, really good documentary that everyone should see about the Beatles in India. So George Harrison, and this is Indian artists being inspired by, in turn, by the Beatles. That's really, really good. But so George Harrison and friends, you know, the Fab Four, go to India and learn at the feet of Ravi Shankar. And they bring it back, you know, this idea, and George Harrison studies with Ravi Shankar, maybe doesn't study for long enough, but you know, we get Within You Without You on Sgt. Pepper, and we hear bits of Indian stuff going on in Norwegian Wood. Is this good cultural appropriation or problematic? Is it someone taking an artifact of a different culture and monetizing it, or is it beautiful artistic cross-fertilization?
I think if we went in a time machine and placed ourselves back in the 60s, it 100% would have been appreciation. Yeah. Definitely. I think that, and I teach this actually at A-level, and I love that when I see a mention of the Beatles in India in one of their essays. And I think it was definitely appreciation. I think that there is so much, and we talked about this earlier, there's so much about that period of time that then made, I think it changed how people perceived India. I think for so much, people had perceived India through the lens of the empire, for example, but in the 60s, actually, it was cool. Yeah.
When the Beatles went to India, they went with such sort of humility.
Yes.
They went to learn at the feet of Ravi Shankar.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
And what I love about that episode is that in 47, India was a supplicant culture, right? So we were the ones who were basically inferior, you know, to the white people who'd ruled us for a long time. And in 67, this is the coolest band in the world. They'd turn up in Madison Square Gardens, you know, being mobbed by Americans. They were global. They were the coolest thing everywhere. Right here, actually. This is Carnaby Street or Kingly Street in the Carnaby area. But this was the centre of cool, and the Beatles were the kings of this and so forth. They go to India and say, and then they literally bow at the feet of Ravi Shankar, and they say, "We are not worthy. You know, this is something we want to learn." And it's a beautiful inversion. You know, and you know, since we were being made, you know, in Amritsar in 1919 to crawl along the pavement.
Yeah, absolutely, under the crawling order.
And yet, in 1967, here we are, the coolest people in the world, 4 kids from Liverpool who'd redefined British culture away from empire.
Yes.
Right, because the Beatles were about modernity and coolness and not empire. They were touching the feet of Ravi Shankar and saying, this is an awesome culture. And that fills me with pride, is that inversion, and it put it on the map. And even still today, when I hear Sgt. Pepper and Within You Without You comes on, it's a bit weird, but it's cool. I love it.
I've never thought about it astounds me that you've just made a right connection between the crawling order from 1919 and the Beatles in 67. But I think that's why it's so important to understand Indian history from not just through an imperial lens, but before, after, and now, and moving forward, because actually there's so much there that we can make connections with and learn from, and learn about ourselves from that as well.
And the crawling order was an act of violence.
Yeah.
The Beatles was an act of peace, an act of homage, and an act of appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess, I don't know, I can see that, you know, clearly it is true that the Beatles monetized that sort of music, maybe more than Ravi Shankar did, I'm not sure. You know, because obviously he became very famous partly as a result of the Beatles, but he was amazing already. So that I can see can be classified, you know, you might say it's cultural appropriation, but for me also, art has got to be quite fluid, and it's a lot of cultural fertilization. If you were to talk, I think, to George Harrison and Ravi Shankar, and they were to talk about it, as they do in this documentary, I think they were both just delighted by the fact that they could make music together.
Yeah, I also think that at that time, cultural appropriation was not a concept that would have entered their minds anyway, because I think we're talking about a time when, you know, when there wasn't a huge amount of understanding of other cultures anyway, so everyone was learning at that point as well.
In the end, we've got to learn about each other. And I think what I would hate to see is a situation where, if we get sort of too, I mean, how to say it, we can't get to a situation where that beautiful cross-fertilization doesn't occur, because in the end, all culture is quite mongrel. You know, we all sort of get involved in each other's culture, and I think that the power of that inversion, the power of that, the different way of looking at Indian culture, I think for me overcomes the question of whether he should or shouldn't be, you know, learning about Indian culture. I'm delighted. Please come, all English people, come to India and learn at the feet of some of the masters of Indian music.
And it goes back to what we were saying about identity, isn't it? Is that we are an amalgamation of the different cultures that make us who we are. Yeah. And that's kind of quote unquote British Englishness as well as our South Asian identity.
Yeah, we're all mixed up. Yeah. Exactly, as we are. And how do you see the future of the diaspora? of all of us lot, our adventures in the rest of the world?
I have never been more hopeful